Welcome to this panel discussion on experiential, competency-based learning, where we will discuss with you our lessons learned, best practices, and applied solutions. Hi, my name is Dr. Olin Odekoven, President and CEO of Paragon Global Services, which includes Paragon Academic Services, our higher education division, the Paragon Leadership Institute, our leadership development division, Paragon Pathways, our publication division, and the Paragon Global Foundation, our nonprofit charitable foundation. Joining me today on this panel is Bill Parrott, our Director of Accreditation Services, Alama Jamian Surin, Director of Asian Pacific Operations, Paul Millett, Director of European, Middle East, and African Operations, Desiree Moore, Director of Marketing and North American Operations, Christina Perry, Projects Coordinator and Director of Latin American Operations, and Kayla Voss, Director of Client Support and Satisfaction. Welcome, everybody. At Paragon, we truly are catalysts for change. We're always focused on quality, striving to make an impact, and leading change within the world of higher education. We enjoy our time working collaboratively with you to make a difference in our world and improve the quality of higher education. Let's get started. Bill, in the world of higher education today, there's been a lot of change within the past few months. What have you seen from your perspectives on what's happened in the last couple of months, and what are some of those lessons learned in higher education?
Thanks, Olin. We all have been watching and sitting on webinars on Zooms and GoToMeetings and other platforms, and there's been three main theses or themes that I've seen and heard over the many hours I've been listening. And the first one, and they're not exceptional or they're not special, but they're ones that we need to keep in mind. The first one is to be flexible and resilient. One of the things we have the hardest time as human beings is to remember to be flexible and to listen and to kind of go with where the world takes us. In academia particularly, we have sometimes have a hard time doing that. But we need to remember there are 7 deadly words when it comes to no matter anything. We've never done it that way before. And we need to get those out of our vocabulary. And I've heard that again and again, how we need to be flexible and resilient. Not reflexible, but flexible. The second one is we've got to be prepared to do things differently. And I'll use an example of my wife, Sarah. She teaches in a medical school. For the next semester, she is preparing 3 sets of syllabi, one for online only, one for a modified in-person online, and the third is for a in-person course. They are very different. She works in an area where there's a lot of clinical education. So doing things differently in those modes are very different and preparing for it. And she's also preparing for the 4th one, the one that they'll actually use. They don't know what it's going to be yet, but it's coming. So remembering to think about how to operate differently and how to deliver and how to do things slightly different. And I think the key I've heard again and again, whether it's on a Chronicle Higher Education or an ACBSP webinar, it's being collaborative with our colleagues, reaching out to those who could help us do our job better and how we can help them do theirs. Working to each other's strengths and to each other's abilities. And one last thing that I want to throw in here, and it's something I've been reflecting upon. All these webinars I've been sitting on have been deadly serious because we have some deadly serious issues going on. But we got to remember to laugh, and we got to remember to see life as a joyful thing, not just a serious, deadly issues that we seem to be facing right now. Thanks, Olin.
Well, thank you, Bill. Certainly much going on in the world of higher education here in North America. Let's turn our attention now to Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Paul, what do you see in your part of the world? What's going on in the world of higher education?
Thanks, Olin. Well, a really interesting question. One thing that I've seen is really there's no standard way in the way in which this has hit schools. It appears that schools that have invested pre-COVID in education technology found it a lot easier to transition. this transition to online learning and using online learning platforms. It paid off for schools that had done this pre-COVID investment, where for schools that hadn't, there was a lot of scrambling to get things up and running. For some schools that did do the pre-COVID investments, I learned that up to 80% of courses were able to be carried out really seamlessly without too many problems. In both cases, full-time and part-time faculty really stepped up to the plate in order to learn what they needed to do to assure that courses were running. And this was the case, as I mentioned, both with schools that had done this investment and those that had not. We are finding that schools are reconsidering education technology investment for this reason and for the future. The second point is that many deans, faculty, program directors, creditors really looked for ways to do things better. They sought out best practices from other colleagues. And this is where accreditation agencies and organizations like Peregrine really helped. They brought together a lot of, and are continuing to bring together a lot of these people to help share best practices, to demonstrate new ways of doing it, as Bill mentioned, being collaborative and flexible. And we're seeing that people are really seeking out, they're really attending these events that are showing best practices. And then finally, students who are expecting to be on campus don't want online learning to continue endlessly. They really want face-to-face experience with their faculty, with each other, in order to participate in extracurricular activities. For the fall, this really creates a logistical challenge, and some say nightmare, because many schools here are restricting how many students can be in a classroom, really only maybe up to a third of people in a classroom. So that means that a lot of schools are going to have to come up with a way in which they're teaching both ways. Students on a face-to-face level, as well as students who are going to be distant learners. So they're seeking out ways to fill in the gaps. They're not really able to bring in new faculty because of economic constraints. So a lot of schools are looking for ways to bring in some modules to help fill those gaps. So really this idea of a blended learning environment is really coming through all the way through 2021.
Well, thank you, Paul. Let's look south here of North America for a bit. Christina, you've been talking to some of our Latin American partners. Tell us what you're seeing.
Thank you, Olin. Just to echo what Paul said, a lot of the same concerns are hitting schools in Latin America as in Europe, as they're moving away from the traditional method of teaching. There's a greater understanding that teaching is not just about standing in the front of a room and delivering content. It's really about guiding students toward a successful life. We're seeing that the focus of education is becoming more student-centric rather than focused on the institution. And then, there are schools that are using this disruption as a lesson, really to show that the capacity to adapt to changing circumstances is what determines your success no matter what the industry is.
Well, thank you, Christina. Alma, you're soon to be moving to Japan, where you will assume a different role and responsibility for Team Peregrine. I know you're leaning forward and looking at that particular sector of the world. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing so far.
Thank you, Olin. So from the experiences of the higher educational institutions in the Asia-Pacific region, we have gathered several observations. First of all, in these rapidly changing situations, schools are conducting iterative environmental scanning and on a much more regular basis. So as Paul and Bill both mentioned, the pandemic drastically accelerated the move to digital transformation. So the schools are accepting and preparing for the fact that the online and hybrid instructions are here to stay even after the pandemic. So now faculty have expressed, and the ones we've talked to, and are impressed by how incredibly resilient the students have been through this all. And the students have cut a big slack to faculty this spring, understanding the circumstances. Faculty also emphasize that it's now even more important to teach and learn about critical thinking, right? Data analytics, understanding big data, and learning to use data for decision making, especially in this day and age. Now, how also they have been faculty incredibly focused on actively engaging students in the absence of classrooms and concerned about losing that connection with the learners. Now, they have learned in the past few weeks, using technology doesn't mean that they can just transpose and take regular lectures and deliver them just online, right? So as Bill mentioned, the faculty, they're very aware that they need new approaches. They need to construct their curriculum differently, right? And they need content and resources to make the online instruction more engaging and, more importantly, speaking to what students are already very familiar with. And in many cases, students are very familiar with the gamification, right? And providing simulated and experiential learning opportunities brings learning right to the environment that students are very familiar with.
Well, thank you, Alma. Well, Desiree, I know you also, in addition to your role here at Peregrine, you also teach. You teach at a university and have some experience here. Share with us a little bit about your experiences as a faculty and what you saw with your colleagues.
Yes, so I do teach at a brick and mortar institution, and everything was in person. Our classroom was very much the traditional experience. The majority of my classes were led through discussion to foster critical thinking, cultural awareness, communication, and the switch to online was not easy. I wasn't able to, I didn't know at first how to offer my students that same experience and to give them the tools and resources they needed to foster those skills, but in an online environment. And the number one thing I learned was to think through the student perspective, think about what the students need, think about the barriers they may be experiencing, realize that you can't just take your on-campus class and make it online, because I tried that at first and it did not work. I lost a lot of student engagement right away doing it that way, but thankfully I really care about my students and I reacted quickly and made those transitions through the end of the semester and regained some of that student engagement. Something else I would say is that students absolutely need you to be present, constantly present. Before, they would be able to come in a little bit early because I was always in my classroom a little bit early so they could talk to me before class. I always stayed a couple minutes after. Students would often take that opportunity to come speak with me. I had office hours. Students would talk to me in person. And those opportunities were very comfortable for students. They knew where they were. They knew what those touch points were and when they could come talk to me. However, when we switched to online, they felt very disconnected from me and from all of their faculty and their class mates. And they were not comfortable with the transition and what those touch points look like. And so, and also with the stress of being in college that already exists without a pandemic and without having to switch to online, students need their faculty to be present. They need quick responses and they need things to be timely. That takes a lot more time for faculty. So we're kind of running into some issues because not only do we have to develop new content, not only do we have to engage our students online, we have to find a creative way to do that, but we also have to hyper communicate with them, communicate consistently and constantly in order to remain present. And then finally, let's talk about faculty training. My school, they provided some training on our learning management system. That was great for those who didn't know how to use it because there were those that did not know how to use it. They've been using paper and pen for a very long time, but they did not provide training in how to integrate quality content in such a way into an online environment and how to use tools to engage your students. And I would recommend that all institutions train their faculty on how to do that, not just use your learning management system, but really the science of learning, or at least give them the tools or resources to find the content, good content, that they can integrate in.
All right. Thank you, Desiree. Kayla, you've been talking to our nearly 500 clients, you and your team, over the last several months. What are you picking up by way of best practices going on out there as schools have made this transition?
Yeah, thanks, Olin. We had a chance to talk to a lot of our clients, and that was probably one of the best things about this that came from this is a lot of clients did reach out to us for help in implementing, changing, or adapting their programs to this new style of learning. So we had quite a few reach out to us and we helped them implement our resource center, which had current and live and up-to-date information that the students could relate to. So they kind of lost that connection with the face-to-face, but now we had that resource center that could help them with current and live events so that it was effective with their lives, that they could relate to it. And so that was really a good opportunity for us to help those schools implement that, as well as adapting and adopting to our ALCs, our academic leveling courses, to help with them fill those gaps of that face-to-face time where students could work on that on their own pace and do things when they needed to that best fit their needs. You know, and that was probably the best part of all of this for us as client service managers, is we got to reach out and help our clients and work with them. And I really do think that we got a lot more FaceTime with them since this, just because they were at home and they were kind of in panic mode, and they reached out to us as the experts and that was fun to see. And that is probably the best part of our job, is being able to help them and assist them during this time.
Excellent. Well, Desiree, you know, whether you're on, you know, you've been a teacher, you've been a student, tell us a little bit about some of the learner expectations here.
Yes, so I would say that regardless of the type of student, remote, correspondence, online, in person, students want engaged faculty. They want faculty who are deliberately engaged, who individualize communication. So in an online environment, it's easy to send out mass emails, announcements. Those are not individualized. They're going out to a group. When you send out those emails, they don't connect to each individual person. And as we all know, a lot of learners have chosen their institution based on classroom sizes, right? So classroom sizes, the small classroom size is trendy, or it's preferable by a lot of students. And so the reason that is because they don't want to just be a number in the room, but they want to be a person. And so when we're sending out those mass announcements and emails, what we're doing is we're reverting back to that number in the crowd versus a person. And so students expect to be treated as individual, unique people of value, and they want that type of communication. And so I recommend that faculty take the time, and again, maybe having some content that they can integrate into their classroom will save them a little bit of time so that they can individualize communication to their students. One of the things that I did was I scheduled 10-minute weekly meetings with my students during this. And because I didn't want technology to be a barrier, it could be a phone meeting, it could be a Zoom meeting, whatever worked for them. And just that 10 minutes, because I had a fairly small classroom size, I only had 22 students in my classroom at a time. And I spread it throughout the week. It was manageable, and it kept the students engaged, it kept them connected, which is so vital during this time. Also, I would say students expect to have the resources that will enrich their learning. In a classroom, it's much easier to scaffold your learning, to build upon things, right? You do it naturally as a faculty member. In an online setting, it's a lot easier to just dump all the content and say, okay, navigate through this and figure it out. Maybe, you know, do some reflection in our discussion forum. But that doesn't necessarily work. And so you have to really work and build your online class so that it guides your students through that content and it builds upon itself. And so that way they have some scaffolding, and that they have a good, and they're building upon that foundation, you know, brick by brick, and building a really good, strong house would be the metaphor I would use. And then finally, I think students expect to be able to apply what they are learning to the real world. I teach English and humanities, which a lot of people wouldn't understand how that's applicable to the real world. Talking about world mythology or comparative religions or literature. How do you compare that to the real world? But you can. All fields of study are applicable, but we need the tools in order to apply. And in an online environment, that can be difficult. However, with simulations and tools such as that, we can apply theory in such a way that it allows the student to make that connection from the abstract to the concrete.
Well, thank you, Desiree. Well, clearly there's a lot been going on in the world. And we at Peregrine have been listening to that. Some of the patterns and themes that we've heard through our in our lessons learned file and from what we're picking up from folks is this desire and need for quality online experiences to supplement existing courses and help enrich and grow those competencies. So let's talk a little bit about our new leading edge learning competency-based modules. Where are we going? So when we started the first of the year, we had about 70 learner contact hours of online instruction. By this fall, we'll have over 600 hours of online instructional content that can be used to supplement courses and programs with some meaningful activities. So Christina, let's walk through this and see what it looks like.
Okay. Well, just as we begin, before we get into the different learning modules that Peregrine's offering, these are based on the National Association of Colleges and Employers career readiness competencies. So as you can see here, these 8 competencies are what were deemed by human resource professionals and colleges to be most indicative of student success once they continued into their professional career. So we're going to go through each of these competencies and show how Peregrine is providing content that might help you enhance your curriculum with tools. Okay, the first one, critical thinking and problem solving. And Desiree alluded to this. We have several options here of different types of content that could be plugged into your program. But she mentioned the simulation. And I really like this, the one-day business strategy simulation. It doesn't let the student be a passive learner. This is one of those learning by doing experiential learning methods where the student enters into a simulation, and it's an extended 60-hour simulation where they have different episodes. And they're not a higher up in the company, but they have to learn and speak to people, gather learnings, and build a strategy based on the political, social, economic environment around them, and then create a proposal for the board of directors. So very interesting way to have the student behind the wheel and guide their own learning. For oral and written communication, we've had a number of courses where the student can kind of take their own self-survey, learn their level, and then improve on their oral and written communication. But I want to draw your attention to these speaking courses by voice coach Roger Love. I think this is an amazing opportunity where Roger Love, if you don't know, is a renowned voice coach in the Los Angeles area who has worked with Oscar winners. He's worked with public speakers like Tony Robbins. He's worked with Sue Zorman. And that's not typically the kind of person you could bring into your classroom, but now you can, because he is helping students give them tips on their oral delivery. So that's a new addition coming this fall. For teamwork and collaboration, this is something that you're familiar with Peregrine Academic Services, but Peregrine Leadership Institute has been working with people in the industry, performing workshops for gosh, more than a decade, I think 15 years now. And so we're taking some of that experience that we've done from our in-person workshop and bringing that to an online format. For example, the Managing Conflict course here that can teach people to identify conflict and turn it into a positive, generative experience rather than something to be avoided. Digital technology. We've had a leveling course based on the information systems management, but we're adding in a new, more extended version of technology in the workplace. And the genesis of this was really the pandemic. And as you all well know, we have gone into, I think all of us have probably used at least a half a dozen different video conferencing platforms in the past couple months. So this is different ways to leverage technology and do it ethically as we seek to broaden our sphere of influence. Okay, leadership. Leadership, as I mentioned, Peregrine Leadership Institute, this has been their focus for more than the past decade. So we have a lot of in-person content and training that we've done over the years. We've also have publications. So for example, there's a book by Peregrine Pathways called Leading Organizations, which is being turned into a course, a very interactive course where the student not only reads material and answers questions, they watch videos, they listen to audio, they conduct activities, they really have to draw in different ways of learning to learn how to become more effective leaders. Professionalism and work ethic. I think you'll be familiar with a lot of these type of courses, these 3-4 hour courses. They're made to give students the foundation of knowledge they need in these areas to succeed in their graduate studies and then beyond as they join the workforce. So for example, business ethics, this is something that is going to be part of the mission of a lot of programs. This is a way to give students, some sort of introduction to where they should be as they begin their studies, and then some learning so that they can improve and make progress toward their assurance of learning goals. Career management. These modules are ones that we are adding to. We've had a few in our portfolio, but we've heard from faculty and program directors that some of these students, they need help even on a more personal level. So we've added things like financial readiness to talk about how to conduct budgeting in your own life and how to be more fiscally responsible. This was, rather than at a macro level where we're covering business finance, we want to teach these students how to succeed in their own lives. So we're adding courses like the financial readiness and career management, how to advocate for your own success. And those are new courses, again, coming this fall. And then finally, for global and intercultural fluency, obviously valuing and respecting a diverse population has become the hottest topic. And this is something that we are working with our global partners to learn how to appreciate and respect differences. We are working with an emotional intelligence expert in Europe, Daria Lewandowska, who has come up with an emotional intelligence course, a 45-hour program, and that's contact hours, not credit hours. I don't want to scare you there, but where we learn how to become better listeners and collaborators and to have that emotional awareness.
Well, thank you, Christina, for this review of our new online learning modules. Alma, we've been offering academic leveling courses for over 10 years. Let's talk a little bit about how we can now use these leading edge learning competency-based modules.
Oh, thank you, Olin. As Olin mentioned, most of you are very familiar with our academic leveling courses, right? Now, these make up now newly renamed Business Skills Program, which includes 16 modules that teach the fundamentals of business and management education. So you may remember we used to have 15 of these modules. So if the number 16 jumped at you, then you're absolutely right, because we just added a new business communications module. So this business communications topic, as you know all too well, has been added as one of the core business topics recommended by your programmatic accreditors. So this summer, we are revising all of our modules with the goal of completing them by the fall. In this new version, we are making the modules a lot more interactive and utilizing multimedia options. And also we are adding new in-progress assessment and engagement activities. So you might remember that each module usually takes up to about 3 hours in duration to complete and includes a pre-test, some built-in online instruction, and a post-test. So typically, schools use several of these modules as a prerequisite or as a first course of a graduate business program. We also have schools that use these modules for undergraduate remediation purposes or for leveling of students coming into your four-year program from a two-year program, for instance. So these are excellent mini courses, the business skills modules that you can use to enhance also your existing online curriculum.
Well, thank you, Alma. Bill, I know that schools are very in tune to helping develop career readiness with their students. Tell us a little bit about what we're doing in this area.
Thanks, Olin. One of the things that I'm very good at is stating the obvious. And one of the obvious things here is that each of our programs are different because they're guided by the mission and goals of the particular programs. Our leadership modules can be used in many different ways. There is a major university, the University of Alabama, is using our leadership modules in all 4 years of their program, or and starting to do that, and they're taking each module and using it as an integrating it into part of their semester program. Another school is using the 15-hour modules that we're developing. They're going to use it in their courses as a way of helping students plan for their graduation and moving forward. They may take the career readiness module in the second semester of their junior year, and then take the other module in their senior year to get out and be really prepared and enthused to get into the workplace. And finally, for those of you who don't know, we've been offering until the end of this year the Business School Resource Center free of charge. And as part of that resource center, there is a career readiness module there. And so that's helpful for students to be able to go in and kind of do a test run on their readiness for entering the marketplace.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Olin.
Alma, as mentioned earlier, Peregrine Leadership Institute, and certainly through our publication division, Peregrine Pathways, has been involved in leadership development for several years now. Tell us a little bit about what we can offer here to schools by way of quality content as it relates to leadership development.
Thank you, Olin. So during these challenging times, as we're all struggling with and we're working to become even better leaders, right? So the Peregrine Leadership Resources, they have been developed, as was mentioned by Christina, by our seasoned leaders from across the globe. And these are designed for anyone who needs any actionable leadership tools or techniques. So far, we have delivered these resources to many of you, member institutions and client institutions. I can remember newly minted deans, department chairs, and faculty members with some administrative responsibilities getting copies of our PDF versions of leadership development books and booklets that we have made available to you. So as you can see on this slide, the Leadership Foundations, Leadership Essentials, Hiring and Leading Organizations books have been made available to you at no charge in an electronic format. If you want a hard copy, please let us know. We'd be happy to send them to you. But also the Leaders Guide and Senior Leaders Toolbooks. I'm talking to a couple of faculty who teach leadership courses, as Bill mentioned. They wanted to make these resources available to the learners, right? And then it has been a struggle to find, curriculum and materials for the learners to get them excited and to get them more engaged. And we're very excited, as Christina mentioned, that Leading Organizations book has been turned into a leadership development module. So for those of you who are getting into strategic management, for those of you who are taking charge over schools or entire departments, as you know, it requires a whole new level of strategic thinking and leadership. So we're making it available to you, the faculty, as well as your learners, to incorporate these resources into your existing curriculum.
All right. Thank you, Alma. Paul, looking towards Europe, Africa, and Middle East, how are schools using these resources to enhance the quality of their education?
Well, as I mentioned before, Olin, faculty, program directors, deans, accreditation people are really now looking for ways to enhance what they're doing. They've kind of gotten used to being in this online environment, realizing that there are some gaps. So what the leading edge learning competency-based modules really help provide the schools and people looking for an alternative to face-to-face with an online environment. And it really allows institutions to help provide an economical and efficient way to fill these gaps. Because the modules can be filtered into courses, full courses that are being taught by faculty. And as I mentioned, with this extensive catalog of modules, program directors and faculty can look and see if they have a classroom that's only a third full and 1 day a week or 2 days a week. They have to come up with other activities that have to replace that in-class activity. These modules can really help provide an easy hybrid solution for this online learning. So for this side of the world, these solutions of an economical and efficient way to sort of fill in these gaps and even replace in some ways some of what's been traditionally done in the classroom is a great opportunity and option for the institutions.
Thank you, Paul. And of course, we can't forget about assessment, the importance of assessment. All of you are very familiar with our various assessment services, but you might not be familiar with our newest assessment services, which focuses on soft skill assessment. Christina, tell us a little bit about eValue skills.
Okay, thanks. I mentioned before that a lot of our content comes from what has been practiced with the Peregrine Leadership Institute over the years, and this is no exception. We've taken the 360-degree assessment that we've done in our leadership workshops and adapted it for higher education. The nice thing about this, it's an online platform where the student or other participant has a team of people evaluate them and get feedback from different perspectives. But what really makes it nice is that the instruments are flexible. You can choose from, there's a menu of over 200 assessment items or different soft skills, and mix and match the ones that fit your program goals. And then each of those items, each of those skills being assessed has a rubric that has a specific definition and some sample behaviors. So it takes some of that subjectivity out of it. When we're rating a participant and we say, oh, they're average or better than average, that doesn't mean a whole lot. But if as we're taking it, it gives examples of what we mean by performance at each of those levels, then we get a more objective feedback. And then the participant will get a report that combines their average score across all evaluators, as well as any written comments that can help them build an action plan for development. They can recognize their strengths and areas for improvement, and then build an action plan with a timeline and someone to hold them accountable for achieving their goals.
Well, thank you, Christina. Kayla, I know you just wrapped up a couple pilot studies that were using our new one-day business simulation strategy experience. Tell us a little bit about what you learned there and where this is good. This new service is headed.
Yeah, this has been fun. Like Lauren mentioned, we had 2 different universities do a pilot this spring, and they both did them very differently. One was incoming graduate students, and they did the academic leveling courses along with one day, and they kind of paired those together as they worked through their strategies. And then one was a capstone. So it was fun to watch the students, and they have to immerse themselves as Emma, the character, in one day. We even had some of them in their papers and stuff refer to themselves as Emma. They had really truly taken on that character. But they have, as Christina mentioned, they have to work through all of the different modules and awarenesses and different things, scenarios that are going on and are presented to them that could happen in real life. And one of the things about Peregrine that I think is really awesome is our client service managers are also our technical support for students. So we got to work directly with the students on issues as they were going, and it was kind of fun because it wasn't our typical like assessments, like my exam's locked or something like that, but they would contact us when they were struggling and got stuff, because it truly was real life. Things would get thrown at them and they would be like, I can't get past this, and we'd have to work through that with them. That's part of the game, that's real life. Sometimes your boss tells you midway through, I don't really like the direction you're going, you need to change. And they would find that frustrating, but it was the real life. And at the end, it was cool to see them come back and get through the episode and get through the game and feel like they accomplished something, not just taking an assessment or something like that. So it's a great product, and it was a lot of fun to go through those demos and watch the students be engaged and learn. And progress differently. And we do have it coming out in a web-based format this summer, which I think will be a lot better than it was a downloadable. So we're excited to see that and watch more students go through this simulation.
I remember reading some of the student comments as they were wrapping up the program at one of the pilot universities, and the student remarked how at the start of the process they really didn't want to do this simulation. They thought this was going to be hokey and weird. And then halfway through it, they realized, I am learning and I enjoy learning. And so then they got into it even more and more. That whole idea of experiential learning by doing was definitely very engaging. Well, I know we've made some significant improvements in how Write and Cite looks. Many of you use the Write and Cite software. Desiree, tell us a little bit about some of the changes that schools can expect with our new Write and Cite.
Yes, Olin. So you may have noticed throughout this panel that we've talked about a lot of improvements that have been made to our current services, as well as the expansion of services. And as a company devoted to quality, improving quality, it's constantly happening. We're continuously working to improve and expand upon each of our services. This year, Write and Cite has undergone a comprehensive review. And as part of this review, we have expanded it to utilize the 7th edition of APA style manual because the majority of our client schools use APA, and so that is the area that they need the most. Also, the new version of Write and Cite is much more dynamic and engaging. We have, of course, before we loved Write and Cite. I'm an English faculty member, and so when I saw this service, I go, oh, I want this right now, because that is one of the gaps I experience semester after semester. I do not have enough time to teach how to cite your sources and correct formatting, but I somehow have to do it every single semester, and for some reason, no matter what level English class I'm teaching, because it continues to be a gap. And so to have this resource would have made my life a lot easier. But the platform is much more dynamic. And if you're unfamiliar with Write and Cite, it's an 8-module program that prepares students for your classroom by delivering competency-based education, assessment, and academic writing, formatting, and citation. And it's meant for both undergraduate and graduate skills. So very useful.
Thank you, Desiree. Almost all of our schools in the Asian, Indian, and Pacific regions have been using these new online and existing online educational modules. Tell us a little bit more about what's going on and how these are used within your region.
So with the leading edge learning modules, we have had schools who have been using it, one-off to enhance, to supplement existing curriculum. But we have had a number of institutions in the region who have been working to introduce a whole entire online business instruction, right, into their program. And they have been struggling. It's a lot to put a whole program together. And with the current situation, the move to digital transformation really forcing them, in a sense, to revisit and to actually re-engage with us. So one of the ways the leading edge learning modules that are being in the process of being used is to build up online programs, because these are versatile, these are flexible modules, and these are also cost-effective and quite efficient self-contained modules that are perfect to use in building up their programs, right? So why reinvent a wheel when it has been already invented? So in addition, a lot of the schools in the Asia-Pacific region, some of them already have English instruction, some of them are moving towards adding English business instruction into their existing local programs. So leading edge learning modules have been perfect to support their business education instruction that is getting offered in English and then meets the globalization requirements also of a program to help the students to become global citizens and to become more career ready for the world outside of their local countries.
As we've used the word modules quite a bit, and we use that word very deliberately because you can take different elements from different modules and build a customizable solution. Bill, tell us a little bit about how that might work as an advanced leveling solution.
And as we all know, when we move forward with our new students, there's higher and higher expectations of return on their investment in education. And one of the best ways we think we can do is you can customize the learning solutions to your students' programs. And by combining one day with our leadership modules or with our business skills modules, you can really truly customize a learning experience for your students. And any of our modules would work, but it could be done in a set where you could either be part of a course, or they could become a course themselves, or even a pre-course for students coming in if you want to get them, especially if they've been out of school for a while, get back into the academic rigor. You could have them do it before they come into the program. Another solution is, I kind of talked about before, is using the leadership modules as a building block of leadership for your students through their career at your institution. Having each year students take a certain number of leadership modules, or do the modules and then in the end do the one day for a kind of a compilation experience of the skills they've gotten while they're in your institution. There's many other ways to combine things. It's only our imagination limits the possibilities. Thanks, Olin.
Thank you, Bill. Well, we've been talking a lot about these new modules, the current modules we have. Christina, what's kind of the schedule of the release of these, and when can schools expect to start seeing them?
Okay, well, several of them are already available, and we do have clients using some of these online leadership modules. We have schools already using Right Inside and the leveling courses, but the new versions that we talked about with the enhancements are coming up mid-August is the goal for Right Insight and for the new business skills modules, including the 16th, the business communications. And then the one-day business simulation that we talked about, it was first launched as an app, but with the cloud-based version will be available in August as well. So a lot coming in August, and then some additional modules ready this fall, some of those larger courses that we were talking about.
And if schools are interested in learning more about our leading edge learning modules, Desiree, what's kind of the next step?
Yes. So if you would like to learn more about these modules that can be integrated into your online classroom, we are here in the virtual marketplace, and we are available via email or phone. We really value our position as your thought partner and would appreciate and enjoy having a conversation with you about your students and your school's unique challenges and needs. We would like to start the conversation that way, to talk about you and what you're experiencing, so that way we make sure that any solutions we have do work for you, and we provide the solutions that work best for you. We also have a tutorial available that will provide you with all of the information you need to understand our leading edge learning. The tutorial is a course built within our learning management system, and within it you will find all of the information that was discussed here today, best practices for integrating content into your online courses, how these modules can aid in student engagement, and all other details you may need to share the benefits of this service with colleagues or leadership. And so, yeah, give us a call, email us, see us in the virtual workshop, and we would very much enjoy having a conversation with you.
All right. Well, thank you, Desiree. As we wrap up here, you know us as being engaging, knowledgeable, and relevant. These pillars are how we best support you by providing you with assessment and online learning modules that best meet your needs, help satisfy accreditation, and overall make an impact in quality around the world. We look forward to seeing you in the virtual marketplace. Come visit us. Someone will be there at our virtual booth throughout the annual conference. And of course, as Desiree noted, contact us anytime. Look forward to having this discussion with you and working with you together that we can make a difference in the world of higher education. Thank you.